Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself a castle. This already assumes that you have a castle wall. I have a tutorial for that separately, linked in the description, but we have a completed castle, nice blue roofs, and a very unorthodox floor plan. So either way, let's get into the video. Right here, I'm going to be assuming you have already built castle walls or just don't need them. And of course, I'm going to be making references to part 1 of this tutorial, so if you haven't watched that already, then go right ahead, because I strongly encourage that you do. Now, from there, also fixing this minor issue, we need to continue from our gate with the little platform we built there, and have a little bit of a centerpiece. It's optional, but I strongly recommend it. Maybe a fountain or a statue, some place where we can go forward and have the entrance of the castle, maybe some stables right there. And then on the right side, we can have some grounds. Because remember, the castle itself is really like a meeting place when it comes to medieval culture. So that way we can have our festival here, we can have the royals here, and we can have whatever here. So yeah, now continuing this pattern, let's go forward and make a pretty large area. It doesn't need to be circular, but some other shape like that would be best. And then we'll follow it up with a large set of stairs. I strongly recommend those stairs are made of slabs and are of something basically not stone bricks. So of course you have a lot of options here and you can choose from there. Right here we have the castle grounds and the stuff leading up to the castle. And this might seem like a lot, but in reality it's just simple instructions taken to the logical extreme. We go down here, notice when we end up on stairs like this, then we use polished tuff because it most resembles cyan terracotta. And thus, we can also continue it up these grand stairs to the door. This door, I'm not a big fan of, don't worry about that for now. On either side of our grand stairs, we have some statues, very similar to the ones in part 1, except a little bit taller, I think. And we also gave them nice capes, because they look really cool like that. Then, we can go up the stairs, notice how they're a little arched outward here in order to make it a bit more grand, and we have a small imitation of these outer towers. We could make them into actual imitations of it, but it's up to you. I think that the simple scale of how big a block is, yeah, that would just look goofy. So unfortunately, we have to remain it flat. But still, we can do minor things like that. We go up here, and there's also a lectern. Never mind. But we also have this whole piece here. We can give speeches from here. Hey, you plebeians, I'm the king. You are not. Have a nice day. And then you go right into your castle. You know, best king ever. We also have double thick railings on either side, continuing our arching patterns. And of course, if we ever want to go up on the terrain, notice we have flat stuff here, then we just build more of these style of stairs. So hooray, we have a ton. By the way, notice the fountain, you can examine its specific design from here. Now, let's go to the door and we can see it sucks. I'm not even going to try hiding it. I don't like this door design. But still, we need something very large, comedically large in fact. How is anyone supposed to open this? I'm not entirely sure. You know what? It would probably be more fitting for a giant to open it. So let's imagine it like that. We want to have a giant for scale and have it be a door for that. And we can see that's a pretty decent scale. We can have it arch up. And in order to make sure that it can be both closed and accessible, we'll just have one side be ever so slightly open, so we can sneak right in. This does compromise a bit of castle security, but if you used a multiple carpet stacking trick like this, where you just stack up your carpets, then mob pathfinding will just assume this is a floating void and it will keep you safe. By the way, remember the corners. But yeah, we have the door here. I recommend something like a plank and then outline it with something darker to make it look heavy and armored. And then we'll outline the door one block outward with some stone bricks in order to make sure it has a little bit of a something to it. And then we can start building the rest of the castle very, very slowly. Right there, we have the door. Notice the gradients in the black stone. It really makes it look quite regal. And when we go inside, we just have a nice flat area of spruce. By the way, if you're wondering about the gradient, you can pause and look at it. We want to go from a shade of white to snow, which is the brightest shade. So we have that going for us. We have the big handles. Nobody's going to be able to use it, but from afar, the door looks mostly shut, which is what we want. And we also have another thing. we need the castle to follow the golden ratio. And hooray, Gearsaw Studios gets into more esoteric stuff in a Minecraft video meant for a family-friendly audience. Everyone's favorite. But anyways, we're going to be assuming we're looking from here. So let's assume we have a big kingdom and this is our last section. Well, we have this part here and we want it to be a little bit shorter. That way we can put a section next to it. So let's have this maybe be like the ballroom and stuff like that. And then behind it, we have like 3, 2, 1. Imagine it like a podium. This is section 3, this is section 2, and this is section 1. And we want these two to build up to section 1. So when we have that working together, it really gives off that Hermitcraft style of build. That's what they do in order to make it look a lot more grand. Let's imagine it like that. So we'll have this part taper off somewhere around here. Maybe we'll have a building or two here from section 1. But overall, section 3 is just going to be this. We might extend a bit over here for more room. Maybe like a big dining room with giant windows. We'll have the grounds here. And then over here we have some stables, we have the tower parts, stuff like that. Essentially, our castle does not need a square footprint. Imagine it like that. And it doesn't need to be symmetrical either. In fact, I'd strongly encourage you to make it asymmetrical. But for now, we just need some pillars to surround the door so that way we can build basically a balcony up here and then maybe another room. Now we have the entrance and you can see it's very fortified. We have these weird spoon markings. Originally they weren't so elongated, but eventually they had to become spoons, unfortunately. You can probably do something similar. Essentially, you want to have a ton of recessed tough bricks in order to add a little bit of color to the build. So here's the idea behind it. We can see how these capes here, the red and white, they're very powerful because the entire build is effectively monochrome. I mean, our biggest things of color, like this gate is considered colorful. We have this greenery, and we have the flags, but otherwise we don't have much. We need to use our color very sparingly, hence why I decided to go with a lot of tough. Very monochrome, and it doesn't have that darkness and moodiness that Deep Slate has, while still being a bit darker. So you can see all of this working together, and now we have these protrusions. This is 15 blocks long, or if you want 14, adding an extension of unknown length, and then over here, 14, adding an extension of unknown length. We want the front to be roughly symmetrical. It does not need to be perfect though. In fact, I don't encourage you to make it perfect. Because, well, if you have a completely symmetrical palace, you kind of lose out on the golden rule. Well, the golden ratio. Because we want to make your eyes guide your way up the build. If it's completely symmetrical, it can have a lot of grandeur, but still you can have some issues with that. Essentially, we're going to be using our color very sparingly. We're going to be using massive pillars, things like that, a bit of asymmetry, and don't forget, since I did not level my terrain, I don't recommend building on flat terrain for this one. In fact, you could build on a mountain like that. We have a bunch of pre-excavated room, which means this could actually be the second floor and we could have some windows down here. Of course, a little bit elevated. Remember, castles are known for having very, very tall roofs. So we can see here, above this door is where our first floor would end. So we might have to divide it. Maybe we want some hallways at the top, things like that. Now, your last thing, you might want actual pen and paper for this. Make a list of everything you want for the build. Of course, we want stables, that will be a separate part. Then we have the interior. We have the ballroom, we have the dining room, we have the throne room. How many bedrooms do we want? What about the royal bedroom? All of those things. Look up real castles for reference. We want to make this accurate because here's the thing. When we make it accurate, then we can include our own little charm and it really feels like this is a complete thing. So yeah, I know it's a lot to take in, but remember, this is more than a build. This is an art form. One final thing, when you're filling out your foundation like this, you can see on the bottom portions, we have a lot of room, especially if you're on uneven terrain. Well, we need a way to fill it in. So one last technique that you might want to know. Right here, we have these arches. Notice how they're spaced 3 blocks apart. They go like this, they look cool. You can upscale this and use it on a lot of the build. However, I also want to use this as a word of advice, like a warning. This is a very good technique, but don't use it for your whole build. It will hold you back because if you over rely on this, then you don't know how to build unmeasured. Like these walls, you'd only be able to build them square, perfectly even, stuff like that. You need to be very careful about this. It's called the rule of 5 by 5. I was held back by it for a lot of my building career, so please make sure that you're mixing it up a little and using different techniques. While we might want these fake windows for maybe servants' rooms on the higher floors, or we want them for the garden, we also want to use different things like our walls here. You can see how they have these more armored bits here. We have these towers with all the detailed stairs and the square blockiness on them. Let's incorporate a bunch of different styles, maybe like 4 or 5 of them. And then let's make the foundation for this, and we'll be able to do a lot from there. By the way, for this wall here, I'm probably going to make this the stables. This part of the tutorial series will not be covering the stables. That will be for after the exterior and interior are done. Right here, we have a bunch of work being done on the castle, and it's a little unrecognizable from the last clip. It's been a full day of work, and you can see how we have a ton of tuff being incorporated, some dark prismarine, and there's a lot of hidden things, so let's go over it. We needed something here because although I want this to be an asymmetrical castle, like very asymmetrical, if you have nothing on one side, it can cause some serious issues. Then I added some tuff as an accent, makes it look a bit more armored, and I have that all around. And you can see how we have those spikes, they curve in and out. We have those windows with their stained glass. It looks really nice. And then we use it for our outlines for the roofs. Because it only has a minor green hue to it, it makes sure that tuff does not dominate the build, because it's a pretty similar shade to normal stone. Like remember, deep sight, this is way too dark for our purposes. But tuff is a pretty similar shade, works with the cyan terracotta, so it doesn't detract from anything. And because dark prismarine in of itself is not super saturated, it's just a nice like dark turquoise, it means that when we incorporate our flags, they are going to be the prominent thing in the build, which is exactly what we want. So hooray! Of course, we have a bit of a floor plan. This will be the ballroom for those dances, of which I will not participate in. Then we have the dining room. This could be a throne room. We have a false wall here, so that way, emergency, you could probably just put a painting with fence gates behind it, run through it, and have some secret corridors in the castles. Because nothing beats having secret bases and corridors in a castle, even though you're playing in single player, nobody will ever see them. Yeah, I get you. But still, we have this big room here, we have another big room, we could incorporate the library. Don't forget, there can be ice rooms. I'm going to make a dungeon as like a part 3 or 4 to this in order to make sure that this is fully kitted. Pretty much, make plans for everything. And you need to have all the major things be on the surface. While we can have our vaults and dungeons below, still, I just want you to have the things having windows because, well, that's kind of how we build on the surface, windows. Right here, we have a bit more progress being done. It's been a while in real life, but we can see how this side room, now firmly a ballroom with fancy windows. Up here, we have a garden being built, and this little tower right here is being turned into a small church on top of the building. And we also have little things like a mini arch here, this special kind of door with the wood. More tuff, we can incorporate torches into it without it looking weird, stuff like that. And we can try varying kinds of roofs. Like here, we could definitely have a roof similar to this one right here. But then right here, we could also make a square where we cut it up like this and then have this one part that's like a 4-way roof and then it extends this way. Ironically, it makes a cross pattern fitting for a church, but still. We also have a pathway going between 2 buildings. We have these little pieces here we can run through multiple buildings, stuff like that. And all around, I'm just trying to make sure that this is an interesting build. Right here, we can see it is very flat though, and that's not something we want. Flatness is the bane of this build. The less area you have decorated, the worse it is. So we need to make sure we have it all nicely filled up. More roofs, more little decorations. Maybe you want to carve out little things to make balconies built in. Stuff like that. We could have a wraparound balcony here. We need all sorts of things that we can stand on to look at. Stuff like that. We can see right here with this weird tree pattern, the giant door, whatever this is with the balconies and windows. This stuff works. And let's continue that all around. As I continue building the building, you can see it's, well, coming together very slowly. We have this area more fortified now, and I still need to finish up some details here and give a guide on how to do that. But anyways, right here we have a little chapel, unknown denomination, just looks kind of cool. We're going to have a big window here, and you'll see how we have a front part and then a bigger back part with this unique four-way roof. Additionally, we just have a bunch of little decorations. Pause if you want to take a look. Of course, if you need help, always comment down below. I'm happy to answer. But now, I have a very interesting predicament. So this dark prismarine, it's alright. And this is where it gets interesting. For this big tower over here, preferably put it in the center. I feel like that was a big mistake that caused this video to get kind of delayed, but still. Up here, we should have some little pieces of the castle hanging off and then going up like a tower. Like imagine we have a big roof here. What about some smaller ones going off of it? So that way it looks taller. And then we could have little walkways around, more balconies, so that way it has more of a cone shape, which makes it seem a bit taller, pointier, etc. But we have all that, and our roofs would just be dark prismarine. Now here's the interesting idea, and this will take a long time if you do it, but it will be incredibly rewarding. What if you forgo stairs completely and start using a gradient, where we go through all the different blues? We could start with blue concrete, blue wool, we could go to concrete powder, or maybe we could jump a few shades, and we could go all the way up to something like light blue concrete. Fill in the differences, and then we could even make our roofs have kind of this shape to them, following my cursor. And this could add a lot. You can see here how we have these little points at the end, and then here they converge in the middle, go a little bit higher. We can definitely do that with some blue concrete and then making it into a gradient. And yes, it's quite time consuming, and I'd recommend it for more advanced builders or if you have a lot of time on your hands. But if you want to, please try it. It adds a lot. And if you have not started building, I recommend watching my tutorials fully and then watching them and building along. That way, if you see something, you can incorporate it from the beginning. Well, you should try building this way first and see if you're okay with having that little quarter block there visible, because the blue really accentuates the build. So of course, it's up to you, but try doing the roof design where we have more of an arch to it, more of the gradient, all that. And then let's continue filling it in. And right here is a fantastic idea of how you can do any flat wall. We just have a bunch of tough pillars coming together with big windows. And the multicolored windows works everywhere. I'm planning to put it over here, and if we have enough tuff to mix in with the stone, then you can make even the flattest and blandest of walls like over here look remarkably cool. So let's work on that. Right here, I've started incorporating some of those roofs. Instead of doing a full gradient, I added some stripes of blue wool. Simply, some of these roofs were going to be so big, it's just not worth the time. But still, if you have the time to do it, I strongly recommend it. And we can see how we have some structures coming in here and there, and they have their blue roofs and how we're focusing up into one point. Additionally, we have a giant stained glass window on the chapel. And another thing, you should be kind of careful about structures near a chapel if you include one. Try to not make them terribly tall. Like that one, it's a decent distance away, it's okay. But right here, I'm planning another tower. Try to make it either thin or roughly slightly below the height of the chapel. Because, you want to make sure that this stands out. But anyways, with these blue streaks and blue everythings, let's change it today, we're really getting somewhere. And additionally, here's how I'm doing the foundation. Of course, one last review. It looks really good right here. And I did a lot of those pillars, a lot of those arcing, repeating patterns, very ornate. We have some stairs making some more patterns. And then we have some gray candles lit in order to add lighting. Big stained glass windows. We have these arches, of course I already said that. And then we even have some pale moss in order to hide a little bit of shroom light hidden in the foundation using these stairs. And by doing all those things, we make sure that it's well lit and looks really well done. It looks pretty fortified for what should be a major downside to the build, having this big piece here because I wanted this open area within the walls. actually turned out pretty okay. So yeah, remember to keep that in mind when building all this. So let's keep going and make sure it's nice and fortified. And another thing, we go over here, these areas lend themselves to windows, but without an interior, we don't know where the windows can go. Thus, we don't actually have to fill out all the windows until we have said interior, which is of course part 3 of this tutorial series. And for now, we can leave a lot of them empty. We know that some areas like the dining hall will have some windows, so I feel comfortable putting them there. But other areas like here, I don't know what I'm putting here yet. There might be barracks, bedrooms, whatnot. So I'm going to leave them blank for now, but eventually I'll add them in. And of course, for smaller, more defined things like this chapel here, you can do all of your detailing now. More tough, more windows, stuff like that. Make sure they're nice and beautiful. And then, eventually, we'll have some more open walkways and balconies here. We can get taller and taller until we get to the top of this, where we're going to have a very interesting roof. And by the way, if you have something like this, and you can see, oh no, we'd have a large balcony, it's perfectly fine to have a somewhat flat roof for one section of it. And remember, include the curves. We have curves here, one nice curve here with some prongs on either side. Let's have some nice curves into the build in order to make sure it looks better. So you can always find the center of the build, try to make them odd numbers, and then we go up, and then the other sides, the edges, they go down. So think of it like circles, and then eventually we have a flat roof or a pointed roof. Right here, adding more of those roofs to the castle, and we're really getting somewhere. A lot of this build has looked kind of weird, but now with these roofs and just adding more layers, it's starting to look a bit more natural. Additionally, on the back, we have some banners hanging down just to fill up this flat wall, and I'm still working on this one and the tower. If you have a curved wall like this and a pillar, well, you might have to do a few accommodations, especially using some tuff, but it's definitely workable. And then at the top of your tower, if you have one, make a point like this. And here's how we do it. So the rounded roof, we start off with like a circle here, then more circles every 2 blocks, and we change it to 3, and then the last one will be 5. Then we fill in the areas between, almost like this, but more pointy and without the windows on the sides. And now that we have all that, well, we can build the tower. Additionally, just incorporating a lot of tuff and candles, dark prismarine into the build really livens it up. Make sure you have all those heavy accents. If you don't, then your build just looks like a bunch of squares. So make sure to keep that dark contrast in it with the tuff. Right here, I have the main tower being filled in, and we can see a whole bunch has been done, and the build actually looks complete rather than the really lopsided castle I originally had. So let's turn it today real quick, and let's examine it. Of course, at the top, we have this little arch, 3 windows, notice they're symmetrical, centered on the middle, and then we have that little pointed top. It's not really little, but still, we do need to add some blue wool here. Then, going down, we have all these little towers surrounding it, and they're not completely attached yet, they're still missing some fences, but you can see they're small little imitations of the main one. This gives it that Hogwarts-like feel, where we have tons and tons of little towers, even though these probably couldn't be used for anything, still they add a lot. Then we just go around, we have these walkways, nothing terribly interesting. For the back, you could just leave it plain like this, as long as there's something. This does need to be detailed. We have those flags in the back, and of course the chapel is ornately decorated as always. I use a bunch of candles to light it up. I recommend adding a ton to the roof. Of course, this isn't really a survival friendly build, but still technically possible. No diamond blocks and such. Then, if you're really out of ideas, if you included that little plant sculpture there at the bottom, you could bring it back in order to make it wrap up the tower. So that way there's a little bit of cohesion. Maybe that little pattern just shows up on those long blank walls. Then we have this garden. We can just copy the one down there, maybe a slightly different style. And don't forget about shelves. Yeah, shelves weren't a thing when I was initially recording this, which is kind of funny. But we have the shelves here. Make sure to use them for your planter boxes, and always have that little hint of yellow, the spruce, the dark prismarine. Even though my castle really shouldn't work, by incorporating those blue roofs and just having a bunch going on, I can really hide the fact that it's a bunch of squares and make it look a lot like a castle. Of course, from this angle, it looks a lot better, but, you know, maybe build a little bit more symmetrical because, well, it was very hard on me to try and build asymmetrical like this. But I think I finally have something. Try those little dark prismarine things going across. We have some of these little towers here. Don't worry about interior, that's part 3. But yeah, we have something really coming together here and we're almost done. Just do the blue wool as well. Right here, we have our castle in its completed state for the exterior. And of course, there's a lot to cover. So here's what I did. Of course, we had those little towers coming off of the building, and now they're decorated. They just have little fence gates all around with varying bottoms with lanterns on them. Then, I added some big windows all across this main tower, and finally, I added some dark prismarine accents. Then, on the corners, I added a few tough blobs you can see alternating, and I noticed that there's still a ton of empty space, so I brought back those vines from the beginning. This thing now wraps all across the build wherever I don't know where to put something. As you can see, by adding a ton of lanterns, I have massively improved the build. The back is still a little bit flat, but remember, we still have an interior to do, so we might have to make modifications out here once that's being done. And of course, we have these banners. Now, let's change it to night, and you'll notice something very different about the build. And of course, my videos are brightened because mobile users, but we can see how the whole build appears well lit. And you can see, if we zoom in here, we have a bunch of blue candles hidden on the roof. And it might seem like a weird choice, that doesn't make sense, but trust me, look at how much better the build is. And using that, we're just able to have a really well lit build. We aren't going to be playing with lighting or darkness this time, just well lit. And up here, I made sure to make this a little bit pointier. If you want, you could make this a little bit more dramatic in order to make the top look a bit scarier, if you get what I mean. And now, with everything here, when we look from the bottom, the castle looks giant, especially this tower, because we have all these things making it go thinner as we go up, and also that door's a little bit thinner. When we zoom out, we can see the gardens and such, but also just the vines. It looks really good from this angle, the golden ratio thing I mentioned at the beginning. So yeah, we have a castle now. It's a little bit unorthodox, and if you built it symmetrical, you'd probably have a much easier time, but still, we have a very nice build here. Now, let's take a quick look in vibrant visuals. Right here, we have the completed castle in vibrant visuals, a little bit of a dark part on things where there'd be lights in the finished version, but we can see from the exterior, it looks really cool. It seems like it wouldn't work, but fortunately, by keeping some things cohesive, adding that roof there to connect the chapel to the rest of the towers, well, we have something really cool. If you want to do something a bit more your own style, I strongly recommend putting this main tower in the middle actually. But if you have that and you just build all around this central idea here, we have some bits here that I changed to tough off camera, well, you can have something really nice, and well, it's certainly a mega base to be had. Either way, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out. And in a little while, we'll even get the interior. Won't be the next video, but it will be coming soon. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw